Hi there, I'm Gideon Rose, editor of Foreign Affairs. We're very lucky today to have with us Dick Betts, one of the grand old men in the field and one of the wisest commentators on American national security policy. Dick is a professor at Columbia, the director of the Saltzman Institute of War and Peace Studies there, and the author of many books, including most recently American Force, Dangers, Delusions, and Dilemmas in National Security. He's also the author of a wonderful new piece in our latest issue called Pick Your Battles, about the lessons of the last decade of war. Dick, we've had the longest stretch of continuous combat in American history. It's gone badly. The wars haven't achieved much, and everybody's unhappy. What are the basic lessons that you take away from this last decade plus of combat?
Avoid getting into situations where success depends on controlling the politics in local areas where the situation is basically chaotic and where local politicians have their own goals that usually don't overlap with ours. And if we promote democracy, as we naturally do, we enable them to follow their own course and to do things that are against our interests. And the third one is that there are important security problems to worry about, and we should be paying more attention now to what used to be the main preoccupations in defense policy, and that's dealing with potential threats from great powers. In this case, Russia, which is back causing mischief, in part because we provoked their pushback, but also China, which is growing and naturally flexing its muscles.
Let me take your second point for a second. You say avoid getting entangled in local politics. You're a good Clausewitzian. Isn't war all about politics? How can you avoid politics in war?
Well, you should avoid getting into a situation where you want to have the good guys come out on top in a civil war, but you're not in complete control of the contest, and you're not even in control of your own allies. Conventional wars between states lend themselves more easily to Clausewitz's point, where the issue is really determining which country comes out on top in a military engagement. A civil war is a messier, more complicated situation. And if you can't control the local politics that determine what your ally in the Civil War is doing, then you're doubly handicapped compared to an interstate war.
Why is it so hard for Washington to stay out of these messy conflicts in seemingly peripheral areas?
Well, for a long time it wasn't hard. There was a long period after the Vietnam War when there was a lot of reluctance to get involved in situations like this. But especially after September 11th, there was a tendency to conflate or blur the difference between the war on terror and challenges in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. And also, since it had been 30 plus years, the trauma of Vietnam had worn off, and we'd also had a tremendous success right at the end of the Cold War, in the first war against Iraq in 1991. And that tremendous success, I think, made it easier for presidents to believe that we could accomplish a lot at reasonable cost with military power, which led to a couple of miscalculations.
So is that actually a silver lining? I remember you saying in the run-up to the Iraq War, when everybody was worrying about whether it would be a failure, you're saying you worried almost as much about whether it would be a really easy success, because then it might tempt us into dramatic, even larger and more reckless engagements. Is the fact that the United States got its nose bloodied badly in the last decade and a half in Afghanistan and Iraq, has that at least insulated us from even stupider mistakes down the road?
Well, for some time now, I think the tide of opinion is clearly against getting involved in similar problems, and that's why there's this mantra about no boots on the ground, even as we try to use air power to deal with ISIS, ISIL, the Islamic State, problems that seem to demand attention. So I don't think it was the great success in Iraq the second time around that is doing this, but the failure essentially in Iraq, even after we patched together a rickety but functioning government and left, quickly became revealed that we hadn't been able to deal with the basic problems, which are internal Iraqi politics and ethnic divisions. And there'll be tremendous pressures against trying to do it anywhere else. There will, though, similarly be pressures to try to rely on air power when we see situations that we're worried about and that politicians think demand military action, because air power seems to be a way to have a military impact without getting militarily entangled. I think that's also potentially a dangerous source of miscalculation, but at least it poses fewer risks of getting stuck in a quagmire.